Given today's political climate, there are very few sources of satisfaction more enjoyable than watching a Fox News host humiliate himself on live TV. And the person in particular is Will Cain, a strident Trump apologist on Fox News, one of the worst. And during an interview with Democratic Congressman Maxwell Frost, he kind of fell into a trap and then had to admit on air afterwards that he screwed up. And watching him get defensive over this is glorious. And it's about a major claim by Donald Trump. But before we play that clip, I want to bring in my friend and yours, Luke Beasley, of the one and only Luke Beasley Show. Luke, just to whet the audience's appetite, what did you think when you saw this exchange between Congressman Frost and Will Cain?
It's so good. Like you said, it's one of the few... We don't get much these days, Josiah. We really don't. But this is one little scrap of joy for us. So prepare.
Yeah, well, with that in mind, here's what we're going to do. We're going to play the clip of Will Cain, trying and doing everything in his power to avoid admitting that he screwed up. But we're going to play the clip of Will Cain basically doing just that, and we're going to work backwards. So here's Will Cain on Fox News.
I challenged him, by the way, on the idea that President Trump wanted to deport homegrown citizens. Here is the clip referenced by Maxwell Frost from the Oval Office of President Trump talking about homegrown criminals.
I'd like to go a step further. I mean, I said it to Pam. I don't know what the laws are. We always have to obey the laws, but we also have homegrown criminals that push people into subways, that hit elderly ladies on the back of the head with a baseball bat when they're not looking, that are absolute monsters. I'd like to include them in the group of people to get them out of the country.
And he goes on right after that to say, but we have to obey the law. It will always be to obey the law. After years of very fine people, among other hoaxes, I'm suspicious of any Democrat quoting President Trump in full context. And I make no apologies, none, on not being able to know or recall that specific clip, because it doesn't reinforce my fever dream Handmaid's Tale vision of America, where Lily, who reads The Bulwark on the Upper West Side, is about to be deported right after Kilmer Abrego Garcia. President Donald Trump was clearly talking about obeying the law. I'm doubtful the law would allow him to deport homegrown criminals. But it's a far cry, again, from the Handmaid's Tale vision of the next, after Abrego Garcia, is you.
Luke, okay. Can you just see him? He's like dying inside visibly because he's trying to find a way to spin this. He's like, okay, how can I find a way to acknowledge that I screwed up without acknowledging that I'm screwing up? And just, like Trump was just like, he was kind of engaging in a bit of like, Socratic dialogue about constitutional law. He's always going to follow the law. What do you think about that before we get to the other clips that led up to it?
Yeah, I don't know why, as you were saying that, it reminded me of the you should, or not you should, but hey, maybe it could work to put disinfectant inside the body with UV, and seeing that sort of really jumpy Fox host reaction as they go, no, I think he was being sarcastic, or if he comes out and says that he wasn't being sarcastic, then maybe he was. This is the thing we love about him, is he thinks aloud to all of us, and it causes people to try things that are really dangerous, but it's good because he's always being honest. And a similar desperation there. Just admit it. Don't do the whole, I'm happy, I'm proud to tell you I didn't know about this massive gargantuous news item. And in the clip that we're about to watch, I got kind of sassy with Maxwell Frost acting like he must have been making this up. I'm proud of that because it doesn't play into the crazy left worldview or it does, and I wouldn't have the same worldview as the Handmaid's Tale. And wait, no. You don't have to believe that it's going to be Lily on the Upper West Side to understand the danger, especially with the Trump track record of understanding who's guilty and who's innocent, as we're already seeing with these deportations. If you apply to U.S. citizens, you have even further potential for human rights violations. But instead, I'm proud that I didn't know.
Again, right before this clip, it's just, he said he might do this unlawful thing, but he said he was going to follow. Like, it's just so, I'm just trying to imagine, like, Luke, I'm thinking I might try to rob a grocery store, or I might try to steal a car, but I'm going to follow the law. Okay. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm only going to do this illegal thing if the law permits it. And so stupid from Will Cain, just the pure cope. But you're right. He did. He got really smug and sassy with Congressman Frost. So let's play that clip, which precedes, it comes before the clip we just showed you. Here it is.
We want to make sure that we draw the line here at Kilmar Garcia, because it's not just about him. It's about the fact that in the Oval Office, Donald Trump brought up that he wants to do the same thing to quote unquote homegrowns. Homegrowns being U.S. citizens, a complete violation of our Constitution. I don't want to wait till it gets to that point. The reason I'm here as a congressman representing Orlando, Florida, is because I've received hundreds and hundreds of calls and emails and mail from my constituents. I represent a lot of immigrants. I represent a lot of people who see themselves represented in this situation. They're saying, Congressman, do what you can now, because it's him today and it can be one of us tomorrow.
I want to dig in on that point. You've made that point several times, but before we move forward, I have to stop down with what you just said. Donald Trump's made a statement about wanting to deport American citizens. Do you have that in front of you? I've not seen that statement. Can you please quote where that comes from, that he would like to deport American citizens?
He said it in the Oval Office. He said he wants to go for homegrowns next, people born and raised in the United States. Citizens.
Do you have anything?
And then
do you have anything besides your word on that? I have not seen that. So. Beyond your word, do you have the source of that? I would love to see that clip or that transcript of him saying he wants to deport American citizens.
There is a clip online. I encourage people to just Google Donald Trump homegrown, deporting homegrown criminals. It is something he said in the Oval Office.
Well, you understand how television works. We have these fancy earpieces. I like to hear very few instructions from my staff while you and I have a conversation. But we are in search of that clip as we speak. So as you and I have this conversation for the next several minutes, we'll be looking for that clip. But
what was he saying about the ear? It was also discombobulated. I love too just how he's like, give me the clip. Like as if Maxwell Frost could play on Fox News' airwaves. Like, play it. Go play it then. On his iPhone. And then my earpiece, I don't even know what that was in reference to.
Well, my interpretation of it was when Frost said, just Google it. Like he was giving instruction to Will Cain's producers. And to me, that's almost as funny because Will Cain's like, oh, don't tell my producers to go get the proof. I mean, I don't want to interrupt like an organic dialogue here. I mean, you know how television works. I don't want these people in my ears. Like, do you want the clip or not? Because it sure seems like you genuinely forgot it that Trump said that, which, by the way, can we just say for the record, that's also a problem. If Will Cain doesn't know about this quote, one of the most sensational viral comments from Donald Trump in his entire career, and recent too. It's not like it was years ago. If Will Cain can't recall that, that's kind of an indictment of Will Cain. Like, why aren't you paying attention to this? Because I guarantee you Will Cain has an eidetic memory, a photographic memory of every cringe shit that any liberal or any Democratic congressman has ever said ever, Luke. Anytime that Congresswoman AOC said something that Will Cain disagrees with, which is considerably less important than deporting American citizens, Will Cain's can probably like, listen, he knows she said it at this time and this date, she was wearing this, you know, like,
I was going to say, he knows the exact name and addresses of all 2 trans athletes in Maine.
No, 100%. Like, and so like to me that's funny. But did you also clock that Congressman Frost like was trying not to crack up during that exchange? Like he was like, I can't believe this idiot is setting himself up. Like, oh, do you have a clip? Like, please. You can see it on Frost's face. He was like, please dig in on this. Please deny. Like, no, Donald Trump would never say anything like that. Unfortunately, Kaine didn't go that far, but yeah, it's pretty embarrassing.
Yeah, they've done these analyses, Josiah. I think that we've referenced before when you take a viewer who watches more left of center media and then a viewer who watches more right of center media, and then you quiz them on just things going on. No, not partisan, just events that are notable in our political discourse across the spectrum. And time again, watching Fox News will make you way less informed just generally. I'm not saying correct on the issues. You also won't be correct on the issues, but just about what's happening in the news and what's going on in the world. And you see it play out in real time where the hosts themselves, because they're reading a teleprompter every day, where they're not learning about a lot of the major things that are happening, it then stands to reason that their audience won't either. and their hyperfixation. It is interesting how, like, for me, there's a lot of things I don't talk about on the show. I gave that, sort of joke about the trans athletes in Maine, and there may be a story that pops up about some niche issue like that gets real down the weeds, and I won't talk about on the show, but I still hear about it because it pops up as I'm scrolling through other stuff or reading other stuff, and I don't get how with something that omnipresent in our political debate for the last week or however long it's been that he hasn't heard about it. And it reminds me of going up to at rallies and stuff, Trump supporters, and asking them, hey, like one time I said, what do you think of Trump getting arrested? And they said he got arrested.
The one that jumps out at me that you've gone viral for so many times was Trump's, classic tweet that he wants to terminate the Constitution. Like, it is amazing. And I know it stunned you because I don't even know if you have it memorized at this point, but you did. I know you did because you were so used to having, prominent MAGA Republicans, not even just MAGA voters, but people like Vivek Ramaswamy, just like look at you totally askance, like Donald Trump never said that. And it's like, really? And you would rattle it off verbatim. It is. That's just proof that the echo chamber is what it is, because to your point, these are not niche culture war issues. This is, the president of the United States in power talking about deporting American citizens to foreign gulags. And I'll also note, there was a Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals decision in the past 7 days written by a conservative Reagan-appointed judge. And he issued a really chilling warning saying that the very predicate that Trump is claiming to have, the powers, the premise to send somebody like Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who's not an American citizen, to El Salvador, the judge said that same predicate could be used like that against an American citizen, against Trump's political opponents. Because if the logic is, well, I shouldn't have sent this person, but I did, and there's nothing I can do about it, and there's nothing you can make me do about it, what is the limiting principle? What's the supernatural mechanism that would prevent a bad faith rogue president from doing it to American citizens or his political opponents? None. So when people say, well, no, of course Trump can't do that because we're American citizens and American citizens can't be deported. Yeah, no, nor can undocumented migrants who are ordered to remain in this country by judges. You're not supposed to send them either. And Trump did. And so it's just trying to get that around people's heads is stunning. And so again, it goes back to what an indictment of Will Cain. I do have a couple of other clips I want to play here. We're actually going to skip to the one where Maxwell Frost and Will Cain have a conversation about the Supreme Court because, Will Cain tries to go for the gotcha. Like, you've criticized the Supreme Court in the past, Maxwell Frost. And I love the congressman's response. So let's take a look at that clip if we can.
July 1st of 2024, you posted on your website the following. It's up right now if anyone wants to go to your website. Our country and the world will now recognize this day as the day the Supreme Court of the United States effectively became an illegitimate, politically corrupt arm of the conservative right wing. That's when the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that Donald Trump had immunity from prosecution. And on that day 10 months ago, you called the Supreme Court of the United States illegitimate. Here today, all of a sudden, you seem to be very dedicated, principled, in fact, to the simple rules of law, due process, and legitimacy of the court.
I still hold that the Supreme Court is very much skewed to the right and that there is corruption on the court. I do hold that today. But the fact that the court is so skewed to the right, and even then, they're still saying a complete decision, unanimous decision, that he needs to be brought home, shows that this shouldn't be a partisan issue. It should be a thing that Democrats, Republicans, everybody are coming behind. Bring the guy home so he can go through due process. That is what the Supreme Court, the conservative-leaning Supreme Court, said.
So do you love that? Do you love that attempt at a gotcha? And I love how expertly Congressman Frost diffuses it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that it's so funny because, wait, are you saying... I get the gotcha and I get the call out of hypocrisy that he's trying to create there, but I'm also curious, what are you arguing, Will? Are you arguing it's also illegitimate and you just think that Frost has flip-flopped, but you're fine with Trump not obeying Supreme Court orders? I will say, though, this does remind me, it's sort of like, do you remember when Hillary Clinton made a comment about Trump's election being illegitimate long after she had conceded and there was no comparison, she didn't try to steal like Trump did when he lost and all of that. But in retrospect, you go, oh, I wish she hadn't made statements like that just to remove any false equivalencies. Because you get that it was a different time. And back then, it wasn't even a thought that she would try to illegally get fake electors and all that Trump ended up doing. But now in a world where that really happened, you kind of want to denounce any usage of language like that in talking about our election systems. A similar thing here where now looking at what Trump's doing, I'm going, all right, when we are angry and correctly venting at how terrible our current Supreme Court is, or other judges whenever we disagree with their decisions, let's be mindful of our language so we use the starkest criticism possible, but don't set up these ridiculous false equivalencies that don't apply to our actions, because we're not acting like we want to throw out, in the name of that term illegitimate, our entire judicial process, whereas that really is in action what MAGA is trying to do.
Yeah, so the way I look at it is this. The word illegitimate, I think people need to be very, very careful about, because it suggests that not only is the Supreme Court corrupt, but they're somehow not actually Supreme Court justices. I take your point. But what's interesting to me is the way I interpret Maxwell Frost's position is he's like, yeah, that is my view. But I've been complaining about this court. You all love this court. You love this court. You say it's the best thing ever. Where are you, to your point, Luke, where is Will Cain when this Supreme Court on a 9-0 decision says, yeah, you need to facilitate Kilmar Abrego Garcia's return, and Trump doesn't comply? Are you going to be consistent? So the way I interpret it, it's not Frost being hypocritical. It's Frost actually doing a really smart thing, which is, okay, this one piece of judicial authority that conservatives love to appeal to is actually in this instance ruling against them. Are they going to be consistent? Because I imagine Congressman Frost would say it doesn't matter in his view what the Supreme Court says. He still thinks that the deportation of Kilmar Abrego Garcia is wrong. So he's consistent. But what about you, constitutional conservative Will Cain? What about you, principled conservative Will Cain? And that's why I think it's kind of like the one with nationwide injunctions. I'll give you an example. So, during President Biden's administration, Republicans love nationwide injunctions. You may remember that one Trump-appointed judge, Matthew Kacsmaryk in Texas, where he issued a nationwide injunction on mifepristone. I didn't hear a damn word out of conservatives about that. They love their nationwide injunctions as long as they're against Democratic presidents. So, in this case, I think Democrats are right to go, hey, I thought you guys loved nationwide injunctions. I thought judges absolutely had the power to issue nationwide injunctions against presidents. They happen to be doing it against Trump here, but you need to be consistent, right, since you love them. And so I take your point. I think there is a risk of hypocrisy, but I think the point that Frost was making was my views of the Supreme Court are what they are. I'm just trying to test your consistency, Will Cain. Will you say, you know what? I've defended the Supreme Court in all other instances, and I've got to do it here, or not? And it sure seems like he and a lot of others are really selective about whether the Supreme Court matters to them. And if that's your position, just own it. And unfortunately, they don't.
Yeah, and I know we're coming up on our out, but can you imagine? What I really want them to think about, even though often it's just the case that Democrats are going to hold themselves to a higher standard, even if you do all this terrible stuff. But can you imagine if the next Democratic president has this little regard for judicial rulings, what they'd do that you wouldn't like?
Exactly. And we did have other clips, but yeah, let's just end it on this, which is, and again, it goes back to that Fourth Circuit Court of Appeal decision by the conservative Reagan appointed judge. He kind of hints at the same thing, which is the shoe might be on the other foot at another point. And this is why I think that even if you are so MAGA partisan that you love what Trump's doing and you hate the libs so much and you go to any lengths to own them, I guess you better hope that Democrats never get back in power, because what you've done is create a precedent that could be used against you. And I think that that's just a bad situation. And eventually, I do believe that there will be a Democratic president who has some of the ruthlessness of Donald Trump. And I think it will be a really bad day for America when Republicans rue the day that they created this precedent. So I think everybody has a principled obligation to oppose it for precisely that reason. Luke, where can people find you and your million plus subscriber, I should say, channel? Where can people find it?
Every time. So I'm always very flattered by you, Josiah. Luke Beasley on YouTube. Check me out there.
As soon as you just type in the word L in the YouTube search, it just instantly pops up. It's like, boom, Luke Beasley above everything else. It's pretty impressive. Thanks for doing this with me, Luke.
Thanks, Josiah.